On a dark, stormy night in 1978, 16-year-old Angela Baker burst through the front door, screaming as she tumbled down the porch steps, desperate to escape whoever or whatever was inside her house. Terrified of what might follow, she staggered to her feet, only to fall again with a cry as a sharp pain tore through her broken ankle. Desperate and racked with pain, she screamed for help as she dragged herself farther from the open doorway of the house she had just escaped. "Anybody!" she screamed. "Please help me!" No one answered. No lights flickered on in the neighboring houses. Alone and helpless, she clutched the muddy ground as rain lashed her soaked skin and hair. Through rain-blurred eyes, she caught a glimpse of movement in the darkness inside the house. She knew she had to move, but the pain and fear held her frozen in place, but panic surged through her. She had to move now. But as she tried once more to escape, something unseen, some strange force, seized her foot. In an instant, she was dragged back into the house, and the door simply closed softly behind her. Well, hello there. Welcome back to another night filled with tales of terror. How's everybody doing? I hope you're all doing good. I hope you're all ready for another scary story, because this one just might make you question if what you're hearing is really true or not true, because it is a little out there. But, like in all my other videos, we're all going to wait till the end of the story so we can all find out together. So, before we get started, I just want to ask you to please click the like and subscribe buttons for me. That way YouTube knows to continue to put out content just like this. Plus, it really helps me out a lot and I really appreciate it. Now, turn down the lights, get comfortable, and let's begin. That house has a history. Elsie, an elderly woman and a resident of the neighborhood, said to another neighbor as they watched 17-year-old Mara Newman and her recently divorced mother, Katie Raskin, move into their new home. The school year had just ended and summer was here, but Mara wasn't happy. When they first toured the house, Mara told her mother it felt as if the place were watching her. Katie dismissed the concern with the usual explanation. It was just an old house and there was nothing to worry about, but that did little to ease Mara's unease. Noticing Mara's discomfort, Katie tried to frame the house as a fresh start. Affordable rent, plenty of space, and a chance to begin again. Mara, however, thought it was a mistake from the moment she saw it. The house stood tall and narrow, its windows dark and mirror-like, even in the daylight. No, Mara did not like the house at all. After a long day of unpacking, the two sat exhausted in the kitchen, eating pizza and scrolling through their phones. Once they finished, both were ready for a much-needed night's sleep, and that first night was when it began. Mara had just begun to drift off when footsteps jolted her awake. She sat up and listened as the slow, deliberate steps moved through the hallway outside her door. Her heart raced while the floorboards groaned under the weight of whatever was approaching. Mara stayed perfectly still, barely daring to breathe. Step, step, step. The footsteps stopped just beyond her door. Then the doorknob began to rattle, not violently, as though someone were forcing it open, but slowly and deliberately, turning back and forth as if whatever waited outside was deciding whether to come in. In the dark, Mara whispered, "Mom?" Instantly, the footsteps retreated. The next morning, Mara told her mother what had happened, but Katie dismissed her fears again, insisting it was only the house settling. Mara tried to explain that she knew the difference. Someone or something had been in the hallway that night. Katie only forced a smile and told her she had quite an imagination. Maybe Mara would have let it go if she hadn't noticed the faint scratches around her doorknob on the way back to her room. They were small, almost invisible, but layered over one another as if something had tested that knob many times before. That night, Mara decided to lock her door, and well, it didn't help. Like the night before, Mara was awakened, but this time, it wasn't to the sound of footsteps. No. This time she awakened to the sound of breathing, and it was close. Too close. Her eyes snapped open, and for a moment all she could see was darkness. But then she saw it. There was a shape crouched beside her bed. It was dark, darker than the darkness of the room, and its breathing was wet and uneven. Mara lay there frozen, her body refusing to move from the fear she was experiencing. Then the thing tilted its head at an unnatural, grotesque angle as it studied her. She couldn't see its face, but she could feel its attention, like a hand pressed against her skin. After what must have felt like hours, but was really only a few seconds, it whispered, "Not this one." The sound of its voice made Mara's skin crawl. It didn't sound deep or high, just fractured like there were multiple voices trying to speak at once. Mara lay there horrified as the thing slid backward into the corner, then vanished. Paralyzed with fear, Mara didn't realize that tears were rolling down her face, and she didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, Mara tried again to tell her mom about what she experienced last night, but Katie wasn't having it. "Enough already," she snapped at Mara. "I just don't understand why you're saying these things. I feel like you're trying to ruin this fresh start for us before it even begins." With these words, Katie stormed off to her bedroom, leaving Mara alone in the kitchen. Mara was stunned. She would never do that to her mom. In truth, she had been relieved when her mom ended her turbulent marriage to Mara's father, and she had supported her completely. Still, Mara couldn't tell whether her mom was reacting from frustration or fear. Either way, she decided to stop telling her any more of what was happening. As the days passed, the house got creepier and creepier for Mara. She started to take notice of things that didn't make sense. She'd pass a mirror in the hallway, and she'd swear she'd see the door to her mom's room was open, but when she looked directly at her mom's room, the door would be closed. Could this be her imagination or stress she was beginning to feel from her nightly visitor? There was a closet in the hallway that was always ice cold. When you'd open the door, the cold air would chill your lungs. Mara avoided that closet at all costs. But the worst of it was at night when that thing would make its presence known. Mara became very aware of its lingering presence, sometimes in the hallway and most of the time at the foot of her bed, watching, no, observing her, and always whispering in that disturbing voice, "Not this one." It was becoming too much for Mara, and the following morning, while drinking coffee, Mara remembered the neighbors' whispers about her house having a history of sorts. So, Mara decided to knock on that neighbor's door, Elsie's door, and inquire about the house and its history. When Elsie answered her door, Mara introduced herself and tried to make small talk, but Elsie knew why Mara was there. Elsie told Mara about several teenage boys and girls who had gone missing from that house for decades, one after the other, all reported missing after moving into the house Mara was now living in. No bodies, no evidence, just gone. Except for one, 16-year-old Angela Baker. It was back in 1978 when she was found inside the house, barely alive. She never spoke about what happened to her. She only said that it chooses. It always chooses. That gave Mara a chill. Could whatever it was visiting her room at night be the same thing Angela Baker spoke about? That night, Mara didn't sleep. She lay in bed, eyes closed, doing her best to control her breathing so to make it seem like she was sleeping. And at exactly 2:13 a.m., the footsteps came. Step, step, step. They stopped at her bedroom door. Then the doorknob started to turn, and the lock clicked. Mara's eyes flew open. She lay frozen as the door creaked open. There it was, in the doorway, clearer than she'd ever seen it before. Its limbs were too long, and its body was skinny, too skinny, and its head was bent at that grotesquely sharp angle. But the worst part was the way the surface of its body constantly moved. It was like it was made of writhing shadows. Mara lay there in horror as this thing stepped inside her room. She didn't want to believe what she was seeing, but then it spoke. "Not," it whispered as it took another step forward. "This." Another step. "One." And there it was, looming over her bed. Mara could feel her breath trapped in her throat, but she forced herself to speak, and in a quivering whisper, she asked, "Then which one?" Mara saw a jolt of uncertainty in this thing. It loomed over her for another second or two, then it slowly turned towards the hallway. Mara watched it move out of her room and into the hallway, and towards her mom's room. Mara jolted upwards. "No, you can't." But that thing moved so quickly. In a blink it was gone and everything went completely silent. But then Mara's mom screamed. Adrenaline kicked in because Mara scrambled out of her bed and into the hallway in an instant. She looked at her mom's bedroom door, which was wide open. She called for her mom with a choked sob, but there wasn't any answer. It was obvious Mara's mom had been in bed only moments ago, so Mara called for her again, looking under her bed, in her closet, and even out the window, but there was no sign of her anywhere. Mara called the police and they came out to investigate. The only questionable thing they found was the scratches around the doorknob. When they looked closely, they made out the words, "This one." Mara never saw her mother again after that night. And as time went on, she found herself obsessed with what could have possibly happened to her mom, and so she began to research, and she came across Angela Baker's story. She found fragments of information from Angela's nurse. As it turns out, Angela wasn't the one the thing in the house chose. That's why she lived. But living isn't the same as escaping. According to the old records, Angela moved into that house with her older brother. 2 weeks later, he vanished. No sign of struggle, no blood, just gone. At first they suspected Angela. She was the only one left. But when they found her, days later, locked inside a hallway closet, she could barely breathe, barely move, and she wouldn't speak. Not for days, not for weeks, until finally she said one thing. "It stood over him first." A nurse wrote down everything Angela whispered over the next few days before she went silent forever. Not many people ever saw those notes. Mara only caught pieces, but they were enough. Angela said the thing came every night, watching, waiting, just like it did with Mara. But the first time it entered the room, it didn't go to Angela. It went to her brother. It stood at the foot of his bed for a long time. Then it whispered, "This one." Her brother woke up. He saw it, and when he tried to scream, it opened. That's the only way Angela could describe it. It opened, not like a mouth, like the whole thing split apart, becoming something deeper and darker inside itself. Something that didn't just take you away, but erased the idea that you had ever been whole. Her brother was gone before he could even make a sound, just pulled into it. After that, the house changed. Angela said the walls felt tighter, the shadows thicker, the doors didn't always lead where they should, and the thing kept coming back. Not to take her, to check. Every night it stood over her bed, waiting, judging, as if deciding whether it had made a mistake. One night it got closer than ever. Angela said it leaned down so near and it whispered, "Wrong." That's when she ran, but not quick enough. She was able to make it outside of the house, but it got her back into the house where she was able to escape it. By some miracle, she was able to escape into a closet and hide, the same one Mara found later. Angela said it wasn't a closet, it was something else, a place that thing couldn't quite reach. She stayed there for 2 days, no food, no water, listening as that thing moved through the house constantly, faster, more restless, searching, sometimes stopping right outside the closet door, scratching, testing the handle, but it never got in. When they finally found Angela, she was half conscious, curled in the farthest corner. And when they asked her what happened, what took her brother, why she survived, she only said, "It chose wrong." After that, Angela never spoke again. But the nurse added one final note, something Angela said just before she went completely silent. It doesn't forget mistakes. It comes back to fix them. And if Mara had seen the very last page of that file, she would have noticed something no one else caught. At the bottom of the report, years later, someone had scribbled another sentence in different handwriting. Patient deceased. Cause of death unknown. Found inside her bedroom closet. The nurse's name never showed up in official records. Mara had to dig deeper, past the reports, past the hospital logs, into old forums, archived interviews, and that's where the story slipped. Her name was Caroline Hayes. Young, new to the job, the kind of nurse who listened when others didn't. She was the only one who stayed with Angela Baker after the doctors gave up trying to get her to talk. And Angela did talk to her, only to her. At first it wasn't much, just fragments, words, half sentences whispered in the middle of the night. Don't open it. It checks the doors. It learns. Caroline wrote everything down, every word, and the last conversation they had was 3 days before Angela stopped speaking forever. Caroline had stayed past her shift again. The room was dim, lit only by the small bedside lamp. Does it follow? Caroline asked gently. Angela thought for a moment, then slowly answered, yes. Caroline smiled a bit nervous. You mean the house or the thing in it? Angela stared at her like she didn't understand the difference. Then she whispered, it doesn't need the house. Caroline froze. A long silence filled the room. Then Angela lifted her trembling hand and pointed at the closet. Caroline looked nervously at the closet door. What's the matter? Angela didn't answer. She just stared at the closet door, and then the closet door clicked. Just barely a tiny sound, but it was enough. Caroline stood up slowly. Is someone there? She called, her voice tight. No answer. The door was closed. Of course it was closed. But something was wrong. The room felt smaller, like the walls had leaned in a few inches when she wasn't looking. Angela? Caroline whispered. Did someone come in here? Silence. Then, very softly, Angela said, it found me. The closet door moved. Not open. Not yet. Just breathing. A faint, rhythmic sway. Caroline backed away. Okay, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Okay, I'm just going to go get security. Don't leave me. Angela grabbed her wrist hard, harder than she should have been able to. Her eyes weren't pleading anymore. They were terrified. Then the closet door creaked open and darkness spilled out, thicker than a shadow, pulling across the floor like ink. And from inside, breathing, wet, uneven, and oh so familiar. Caroline couldn't move. She couldn't scream. The thing unfolded from the closet, too tall for the room, too long for itself. It bent in impossible angles as it stepped out, like it was remembering how to be solid. But it didn't look at Angela. It looked at Caroline. For a moment, nothing happened. Then it tilted its head, as if recognizing something, as if remembering, and it whispered, "This one." And the lights went out. When staff found the room later, everything looked normal. Angela was in her bed, alive, silent again, but Carolyn Hayes was gone. No sign of struggle, no trace, except for one thing. On the inside of the closet door, carved deep into the wood, fresh, jagged, desperate, were the words, "I thought it needed the house." And underneath, barely legible as if carved after, slower, more carefully, "It doesn't." Okay, so what are your thoughts on this story? What do you think that thing even was? Energy that just fed off of certain people? And why do you think it even stayed in that house for as long as it did, when obviously we found out that it really didn't even need to be there? Anyway, do you think the story is true? Well, if you said no, you're correct. This is just a story I came up with while sitting here at my desk. Sort of the thing in the closet meets a haunted house kind of combination sort of story. Anyway, I do hope you enjoyed tonight's scary story, and I just want to ask you before we say goodbye to please click the like and subscribe buttons for me if you haven't done so already, and then to prepare for more scary stories coming your way. So until next time, stay safe and stay scary.